Good afternoon and welcome to the COVID-19 update on Channels Television. I'm Millicent Walker. First, some of the highlights. Coronavirus cases surpasses 27,000 in Nigeria as country records 626 cases in 20 states and 13 deaths. The Lagos State government seals 10 private schools for going against closure directives of federal and state government as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. And the World Health Organization urges safety as African airlines begin operation. Nigeria recorded more cases of COVID-19 last night, bringing the total confirmed cases to 27,110. 626 new cases were recorded and 13 deaths in 24 hours. In the meantime, 10,801 patients have recovered after about 649 people were discharged in a single day across the country. The new infections were gathered from 19 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, with Lagos recording the highest, 193 of the new cases, followed by the FCT with 85, Oyo 41, Edo State 38, Kwara 34, Abia 31, Ogun 29, Ondo 28 cases, Rivers 26, followed by Osun 21, Akwa Ibom and Delta recorded 18 each, Enugu 15 cases, Kaduna 13, Plateau 11, Borno 8, Bauchi 7, Adamawa 5, Gombe 4, and Sokoto State 1. A breakdown by region shows Lagos in the southwest still the epicenter of the pandemic with 10,823 cases, while we have the FCT topping in the north central with 2,020 cases, Kano in the northwest with 1,257 cases. Edo State still leads in the south-south with 1,203 cases. Bauchi displaces Gombe once more in the northeast with 512 cases, while Ebonyi still leads in the southeast with 438 cases. The World Health Organization has called for caution as African airlines begin operations in various countries. According to the body, strict measures should be observed to prevent surges in coronavirus infections. The organization urges governments to ensure airlines take information of passengers traveling and follow up with them to prevent outbreaks. The WHO Regional Director for Africa, Dr. Moeti, said air travel was important for the economy, but new normal still requires stringent measures to stem the spread of the virus. In the meantime, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Tanzania, Zambia have already resumed commercial flights. Tunisia reopened its airspace to commercial flights on June the 27th. The organization cited a surge in Seychelles related to travel in the last week, where 66 new cases, all crew members of an international fishing vessel, have been recorded. Now, over in Lagos State, the government has sealed 10 private schools for flouting the closure directives of the federal and state governments on schools as a result of the pandemic. The Director General, Office of Education Quality Assurance, Lagos State, Mrs. Abiola Seriki Ayeni, who led the monitoring and investigation team of the office, disclosed this during the second and third phase of the massive monitoring of private schools' compliance to the directive. According to her, a large number of private schools visited across the state were found to have complied, while the non-compliant schools have been sealed. The exercise, she further stated, will be continuous, cutting across all the education districts in the state. She admonished parents and school owners and encouraged them to abide by the safety protocols on COVID-19. Now, online learning appears to be receiving priority at the period from the government of Kano State. For them, this is a way not only to keep the students busy at home, but to ensure the process of transferring knowledge continues during the pandemic. In this report, we take a look at the virtual learning and the attention it's getting in Kano.
Kano State is the epicenter for coronavirus in the northwest region of Nigeria. The state has been through lots of trouble since the outbreak of the pandemic. And as the nation begins to think through reopening the economy, schools, mosques and churches, key interest groups are also thinking about the best way to go about this project. Kano government believes that before that exercise begins, the students should not be left idle, and the solution for them is online learning.
We have introduced online teaching, particularly for our students at home. And in the course of these preparations, we got some interventions from UNICEF and DFID. They also extended the coverage to secondary school, primary school education.
The schools have bought into this idea of online studies, and they are putting in their best to ensure that learning is taking place at this crucial period.
It's a different medium of reaching out to the kids than teachers are used to. So we had to train the teachers before the first video was ever shot of how to talk to the students, how to even exchange pleasantries with them, how to make them feel comfortable watching their class through a screen.
It's a mix of feelings for the students themselves, who believe the exercise is of great benefit to them, but of course, there are some hindrances.
I am doing lessons on the radio and television, English and mathematics.
I prefer the classroom because it makes me understand and pay more attention.
I'm in SS1. I used to watch the lessons Mondays and Thursdays, but because there's no light, that's why I don't used to follow it sometimes.
Once the schools reopen, there will be need to comply with some restrictions already put in place by the NCDC. Social distancing should be the order of the day. Washing of hands must be done as often as possible. Wearing a face mask is very essential, and keeping 2 meters distance is imperative. But how this can be achieved among students is the big task before the school management and the students.
Now, according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, there is a strong need to strengthen messaging around the ease of lockdown, as risky behaviors are a pressing challenge confronting the messages on COVID-19 and its dangers. Well, for more on the impact of the virus on Nigerians, Dr. Lugbenga Koka is a clinical psychologist, and he joins us here on the program in Lagos. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, the virus is spreading. People are losing loved ones. There is a considerable degree of fear. There's worry. There's concern, even though we're told not to panic. But let's start with those that contract the virus. They're kept in isolation centers for days. How do they get through the loneliness and sometimes the possible depression?
Okay. One of the things we need to understand is that they are going through a particular phase in their life now like they have never done before. So this can be very traumatic for this set of persons, both for them and their relatives back home. So a lot of things begin to build up in their head. They are not sure if they're going to survive or not. They're not sure if the case is going to get worse or they are going to actually get better. So one of the things we do for them, or we can do for them as a society, is to put in place emotional support by trained professionals to ensure that day by day their needs are met, emotional needs, not physical needs. Like that. So their emotional needs are met, they are related with, they are allowed to communicate with family members, or a set of a structured social support that can help them through that period for the general people. But for some set of persons that we have noticed from moderate to severe kind of things like anxiety, or they start manifesting symptoms of depression or post-traumatic stress, it becomes very important to see a trained clinician, a psychologist, so that they can help them through the cognition, the way they perceive things, they process things, so that they can, one, alleviate the stress in their mind, then alleviate the stress in their body, so that they can be able to ease on. It's a season of transition. So they are transitioning from being on the streets, just a regular free person, to now in isolation center, and also from isolation center, possibly, hopefully, back to their homes.
What's your final advice on taking care of our mental health while we battle this pandemic?
Interesting. It becomes very important that we do a total lifestyle adjustment. Number one, our diet is very key, very, very key. We do not, and we should not take it for granted, so that it can strengthen us to fight and to combat some things. Then some other things like water, that is, we are adequately refreshed at every point in time. We are not dehydrated. Then the type of persons we relate with, the type of information we absorb, so that we avoid sensory overload that can bring us down emotionally. Then we should not forget the circle of friends, relationship that can help us get better on day-to-day basis.
We appreciate your time, clinical psychologist Dr. Lugbenga Koka. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Over in Imo State, the state's COVID-19 task force has inaugurated a subcommittee with several agencies in the state on carrying out sensitization and awareness on COVID-19 safety protocols to curb the pandemic spread. Here's our correspondent, Itokwe Kuteye, with more.
To the fight against COVID-19 in Imo State. The Imo State COVID-19 Task Force has inaugurated a subcommittee which is in partnership with some strategic ministries in Imo State, such as the Ministry of Transport, the Ministry of Commerce, and the Ministry of Tourism. This subcommittee is saddled with the responsibility of sensitizing the general public on the need to comply by the rules and regulations and precautionary measures put in place by the government to contain the spread of the coronavirus disease. Some of the members of the committee were out today to enforce some of the guidelines and protocols put in place by the government. They were at some major markets and motor parks to distribute face masks and also educate them on the need to use face masks to keep physical distancing and to also provide sanitary buckets where people could wash hands.
If you look around here now, unless people that came with me, you will see that 65% of the people who are walking here are not wearing masks. The same thing applicable to most vehicles that are loading. Most of the keke people you have here and the small buses, they've been asked to carry only 3 passengers, 2 behind and 1 in front. If you look at this vehicle moving now, you will see what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. They are not observing all these protocols. So because of that, we have been asked to come here to make sure that they comply. And what we have just done is to give them drift of doubt today. From tomorrow, the mobile court will be working with us. As soon as we get you arrested, we'll push you to the mobile court and they will fine you.
With 352 confirmed cases of the coronavirus disease, Imo State comes second in the southeast with the highest number of coronavirus cases. From Owerri, the Imo State capital, Itokwe Kuteye for COVID-19 updates.
We have a pharmacist who joins us here in Lagos, Mr. Babatunde Adedoyin. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Melissa, for having me.
So we're looking at lockdown restrictions that, being lifted across the world. How can border states protect themselves? And this is looking at, Nigeria and its peculiarities with neighboring countries while the world is trying to battle a pandemic.
Beautiful. Thank you. It's not good news that the pandemic has entered the community phase of transmission. And I think that what that implies is that all efforts at testing must be ramped up. Testing capacities must be ramped up on. And then people should be sensitized on the importance of taking society to take it upon themselves to present for testing when they suspect they might have had contact with.
So that means we need to have states taking responsibility because they need to drive this.
The society must take under that responsibility to know that they have that they have responsibility to not only to protect themselves but also their loved ones, their friends, the people around them.
Looking at the symptoms of COVID-19, what would you say is the most common symptom in all of the symptoms?
Yeah, beautiful. Amongst others, lack of sense of smell, lack of sense of taste. Those are some of the most cardinal, symptoms that present early, upon contact after the 2 to 14 days of contact with that.
Okay, well, we're going to come back to that, the lack of sense of smell and taste, because some people say there are similarities with that COVID-19 and then malaria, but you clarify that. We need to go on a break. When we come back, we still have Dr. Mr. Adedoyin, a pharmacist, with us, and we have more on the global response to COVID-19 when we return. While much of Europe is seeing decreasing numbers of COVID-19 cases, the German development minister is warning that the pandemic is yet to reach its peak in some developing countries and more aid is needed. Does the EU countries risk a migration crisis if Brussels doesn't do more to help poorer countries? We have Chiponda Chimbelu, a Deutsche Welle correspondent. He joins us from Berlin for more on this. Hi, Chiponda. Tell us, how is Europe at risk of getting more migrants as a result of the coronavirus?
Well, if we look to what development experts have been saying, I mean, including experts from the World Food Program, and of course, Germany's development minister, Gerd Müller, what they are saying is there's a link between the pandemic and poverty. In fact, if we look at IMF projections, the International Monetary Fund, they've projected that an additional 12 million people could fall into extreme poverty in Africa alone, and another 20 million projected next year if things carry on as they are. So it is the link between poverty and COVID-19, which could actually also force people or motivate people to leave their home countries in search for places where things are more economically stable. And that would be Europe, for instance. And so that's what the warning is essentially. We might get more people motivated to leave their home countries in search of, more better economic chances, opportunities, but not just that, also in search of peace if their country has become unstable as a result of the pandemic.
So what exactly is the German development minister proposing?
Well, he wants to see more money coming from Brussels. He has called it embarrassing that Brussels is spending or willing to spend around 750 billion euros, which has been proposed, of course, by Angela Merkel's plan and Emmanuel Macron's, and that's what's in discussion right now. But what has been proposed for Africa in terms of from the EU and from Brussels itself is an additional 1 billion euros, and that is in itself the problem, says the German development minister. He wants to see a stabilization fund of around 50 billion euros, which would target African countries and help them deal with the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. So more money is what he's basically asking for.
What are the chances that EU countries will be able to come with a solution that could prevent a migration crisis?
Well, the rescue fund, which I just spoke about earlier, the 750 billion euros, which is in discussion right now, will be discussed in mid-July by EU leaders. And so there's been a bit of disagreement in Europe regarding that from, of course, Germany and France came up with that plan. But we also have the Frugal Four, which is Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands and Austria, who don't agree with how those funds will be distributed. They want to see countries like Italy and Spain, which have been hard hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, get more loans instead of concessions and grants. And so depending on how those discussions pan out and how long it takes for European countries to come to an agreement, then we might actually see them trying to perhaps look at what they can do for African countries and, of course, developing countries elsewhere as well. And until they can come up to an agreement for the EU, it is hard to say whether they will be able to agree on maybe dispersing more funds to other countries outside the bloc.
All right, we appreciate your time. Chiponda Chimbelu, DW correspondent. It was a pleasure seeing you. Thanks for the update. Well, we still have Mr. Babatunde Adedoyin, a pharmacist. Just before, we went on break, you were talking about some of the symptoms. And I was asking particularly with regards to the symptom of the loss of taste and smell.
Yeah, just like the clinical cause of a number of other illnesses, they could have symptoms that could, that could overlap with other conditions. But however, the classic symptoms that have been, shown that have been attributable to COVID-19, lack of sense of smell, like I said, loss of sense of taste, among others, and then these symptoms could potentially gravitate into more severe symptoms like, fever, chills, sore throats, sometimes,
fatigue
loss of
as
breath,
well, weakness.
breathlessness and muscle pain, and a whole other.
So this essentially are what people should look out for. But in terms of what advice would you give to the government to flattening the curve? We're seeing a daily case rise.
Yes, certainly. At this point, I think well, the government is doing its own its bits currently. But however, I think the testing capacities needs to be ramped up on so that people presenting with the early symptoms can be picked up on time. The contact tracing should be ramped up so that people can be isolated on time and then treated so that they don't get to infect other people in the community.
All right, we appreciate your time, Mr. Babatunde Adedoyin, a pharmacist. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
The World Health Organization says the global confirmed infections of COVID-19 has reached over 10,533,000 and the disease has claimed over 512,000 lives. The WHO data show the Americas reporting the most confirmed COVID-19 cases in the world, followed by Europe and Eastern Mediterranean, which have confirmed over 2 million and over 1 million cases, respectively.
Thailand's main Suvarnabhumi airport near Bangkok showed off coronavirus screening measures for arriving passengers as it prepared to welcome limited groups of international travelers amid the country's slowdown in coronavirus cases. Among the measures, the airport has created a virus lab capable of providing results within about 2 hours. Tokyo has reported 124 new coronavirus cases, up from 107, partly due to increased testing among nightlife workers in the Shinjuku and Ikebukuro districts. Forced to cancel a popular on-site tour due to the coronavirus pandemic, the Bank of Japan created a virtual one that takes viewers through the brick corridors, dome-roofed rooms, and even an underground vault of its century-old headquarters online. With a click of the mouse, visitors to the tour de board from home site enter through the central bank's massive courtyard and stroll inside the Western classical-style building with a 360-degree panoramic view of its interiors. North Korea's state-run television, KRT, has aired a video of leader Kim Jong-un holding a meeting of the Politburo of the ruling Workers' Party. The state media said that Mr. Kim told the meeting the North had stopped the novel coronavirus from making inroads in the country. He warned against self-complacency or relaxation in the anti-epidemic efforts and urged North Koreans to maintain maximum alert.
Now, from the NCDC, most COVID-19 cases are in people aged 20 to 40, while most deaths are in those over 50. No age group should be blamed as COVID-19 affects our lives in different ways. We must take precautions to protect older relatives by wearing the face mask, the hand washing and other respiratory hygiene. You can find the regular updates on the COVID-19 regulations and guidelines on their website. From the World Health Organization's website, your questions are answered on the coronavirus disease situation. You can see the latest global numbers by country of COVID-19 cases on a daily basis. There are strategies and plans each moment. It keeps updating. Also, take a closer look at our website, channelstv.com. It has the latest news, and from what we can see there, just a few hours ago, exactly 10 a.m., another 86 evacuees arrived in Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport via Air Sudan today. We're told that all evacuees tested negative before boarding, and they will now proceed on the 14 days self-isolation as mandated by the PTF on COVID-19. You can find other updates on our website, channelstv.com. That's a COVID-19 update. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Stay healthy, stay safe.